Welcome. Let's have a look at what expenses you can claim in your sourcing business. I'm Kimberly Shapcotts, qualified chartered accountant, property investor and entrepreneur. Let's sit down and have a chat. Property sourcing, a great way to generate some income in the property industry. So let's have a look at what expenses you can be claiming in your property sourcing business. Now, the great thing about a property sourcing business is it's seen as a trading business rather than an investment business, which is great news because that means that there's a whole host of different things you can look at, which you can't when you're looking at an investment property business, which is the buy and rent and hold type models. So the first thing to mention is therefore that with a trading business, like any business, the key thing is that the expense is wholly necessarily and exclusively for business purposes. Now, this can sometimes be stretched a little, but generally if it's for business purposes, it hopefully should be easy to fulfill those requirements. So let's have a look at some expenses that you might consider claiming within the sourcing business, and let's go through them one by one to give you an idea of some of the bits that you should be claiming. One of the first things that we ought to be considering is if you're putting through a salary for your business. As a trading business, you're probably working in that business, so therefore it would make sense for you to have some sort of salary. Check out the video about payroll to see how that all works together, but generally it's an expense for the business, any salary, whether it be yourself or any other person that you employ. One of the great benefits of being employees is we can also look at staff parties. So things like going out for a Christmas dinner, whether it just be you and a spouse or you and a business partner, and that is an allowable expense in the business. However, you are only allowed to spend up to £150 per person, and all employees have to be invited. So if you do have some other employees who are not maybe family members or senior people, you will still need to invite everyone. But if it's just you and a spouse or a business partner, then you can go out for lunch each year on the business to go and enjoy. Another is that you're also allowed to provide trivial gifts and benefits. So these are things that are under £50 and could be things like flowers or chocolates or a bottle of wine or something like this. And you are allowed to take these on whenever basis. So as something happens in the business and you want to celebrate, maybe you've just sold a deal or you've sold the 10th deal of the month, whatever it may be, you can give a gift to the individual, which is seen as a trivial benefit, so therefore is just again an expense for the business. Another that you may want to consider is if you want to put private healthcare through, which could be an expense that you put through your business. There are benefit in kind complications to this, but again, that's something that you might want to look into. A further one is pension contributions. Now, I know in property a lot of people aren't great believers in pensions, but they are a great way of putting things into investments and also being tax allowable for the business. So it's reducing the corporation tax and also putting it into something beneficial for the future so that you are going to see a benefit and pay less tax now. Business entertaining is another area that is worth mentioning. Now, for business entertainment, it's not an allowable expense for tax purposes, but if you are working within a limited company format, the expense is allowable within the business as an expense in the company. It's just you won't get tax relief on it. So it's just something to be aware of for business entertainment. This leads nicely onto business mileage, and we'll cover business subsistence as well. So business mileage is where you are driving your own personal car outside of the business ownership, and you were going to viewings, you were going to deals, you're meeting investors, or whatever you may be doing within the business for business purposes. And what you can do is claim 45p per mile up to 10,000 miles, and then you can claim 25p after that. And this is an allowable expense in the business. It will reduce your corporation tax or your income tax, and from that point of view, you will then be able to claim that money out of the business as an expense of the business. Now, if you are out and about and travelling, then you may need to get some subsistence, some food, a coffee, something like this. Now, this is especially relevant if you're, say, going from maybe London to Manchester and you're driving around for the day, doing viewings, seeing different people, and you're obviously not going to be able to pop home to grab your lunch if you are the other side of the country. So therefore, what you can do is you can claim your lunch, you can claim your coffee in the afternoon, coffee in the morning, and potentially maybe even claim your breakfast or your dinner, depending whether it's an overnight trip or just a day trip. If you are stopping overnight, then there may be the cost of things like your hotel or your dinner and your breakfast the following morning that you can claim as an expense within the business, as it's part of your business trip, your business expenses, that you'll be able to claim these against your business expenses. Let us move on to some office expenses. Now, as you would imagine, all your stationery and all your general expenses are allowable for tax purposes. But then if you are working from home and you maybe have an office space at home, but you're not renting anything, you're not incurring any costs apart from your normal household bills, then you may be able to claim the use of home allowance. And this is based on the number of hours you are working per month. So these are shown on screen to just give you an indication of what you can claim at present. And based on this, it allows you to claim a flat set amount without you having to go through your bills to try and apportion things, and is a great way of claiming an expense against the business for really nothing apart from using your home as your office. If you do think that the bills are going to be higher than the flat rate amounts, then you can look at your home bills, so things like your water, electricity, gas, and apportion them. Now, if that is the case and you're using a lot of electricity, a lot of gas, then it might be worthwhile doing this. However, for some sourcing businesses, maybe because it's just your laptop and you're doing a few bits, then you may not find it worthwhile and a bit of a waste of your time. However, if you are obviously taking cameras, you're charging cameras, and you've got a lot of electrical kit, then you might find that your bills are slightly inflated and it would be worthwhile doing the apportionment approach. Other office stationery that you might want to consider claiming are things like if you are printing, your paper, your ink, your stationery, all of these sorts of things are all allowable expenses within the business. Now this moves me on to the equipment that you are using, which I've obviously mentioned printer, ink, but if you're getting a printer, you'd be able to claim your printer in the business. You can claim your potentially phone, your iPad or tablet, your laptop or computer, your camera, all of these different expenses that you're incurring to deliver the service that you are providing to your investors. You'd be able to claim all of this type of equipment. Obviously, if you're doing things on tablets or phones, you may also have certain apps that you are paying for on a regular basis to make your business run smoothly and to help with maybe storage of data and all this type of thing. So do keep an eye out for what app expenses you are incurring, and then you would be able to also claim those app expenses for your subscriptions that you are paying. Most businesses these days tend to use some sort of telephone or mobile to communicate. Now, the key thing for claiming this expense, if it's in a company especially, is that the expense is in the company name. If you're in self-employment, then that would mean that you can apportion the bill. Whereas if you're in a limited company, you'll need the phone to be contracted in the limited company to make the claim. Otherwise, there are other tax complications involved. Now, obviously, if the whole bill is in the company, then you can claim the whole bill against your corporation tax. And one of the nice things is if you do use it for personal use a little bit, on the basis you have it for business calls and business reasons, the personal use is seen as incidental, so therefore you'd just be able to claim the whole expense. Moving on from that, obviously we have broadband, because that is one of those areas these days that many businesses can't operate without that sort of service. Therefore, any broadband bills, again, they ought to be in the company or business name, so then you can look at claiming the whole expense, even again if there is incidental personal use of that Wi-Fi or broadband connection. Moving on to some different expenses now. So you will definitely have your insurance costs, you'll have some license fees, you'll have some of these expenses, and all of those are fully allowable for tax purposes. So make sure any subscriptions, licenses, professional fees that you're incurring, all of those are recorded within your business records. Unfortunately, as a business, you will be incurring bank charges at some point. Make sure you check out, if you're just starting, the free banking, where you can usually get between 12 and 18 months of free banking for your business. Then after that, there'll be some bank charges, but again, these are all completely allowable expenses of your business that you'll be able to include in your business records. As a business, one of the expenses these days we can't avoid is some sort of marketing. Now, some of this you might be doing free and getting in touch with different people through things like LinkedIn or Facebook. But if you are incurring any sort of advertising, such as Facebook ads, Google AdWords, all these sorts of things that you may incur some sort of cost, again, all allowable expenses. So make sure you keep track and make sure you put that down in your business records to ensure that you are claiming these advertising and marketing expenses. Following on from this, we have things like training, and we have things like networking. And on the basis we have these sorts of expenses, again, these are all allowable expenses within your business, and on that basis you just need to make sure you keep track of the receipts and the paperwork and put those down on your business records. One key aspect of the training side of things is that you can't claim any expenses for training that is teaching you something new. However, as soon as you have a topic that you're aware of, to expand that knowledge, to develop that knowledge, to be brought up to date about that knowledge, all of those expenses are allowable expenses within your business. So as you are doing additional courses, additional training, you can claim all these within your business. Any professional subscriptions, whether it be things like the RLA, NLA, local associations that you are a member of, these are all allowable expenses for the purposes of tax. A final one to throw in there today is, as an employee of the business, if you have got an eye test that wants to be done, this is an allowable expense of the business. Now, you may not be able to fully claim your glasses if you do need glasses, but if you need glasses because you're sitting at a computer staring at that, then you might want to try and put those through and see how you can get those fit together. It may be you can't get the frames through the business, but you can get the lenses through the business. So there is a few grey areas here, and it's worth putting down and speaking to your accountant to see what you can and can't claim within the business. One thing I want to finish off with today is what you need to keep. So the main area you need to keep is you need to keep hold of receipts. You need to keep hold of copies of receipts. Now, these may not need to be physical receipts, and if you're using some sort of software, you may be able to take photos and have those photos within your software. If you're not using software but you are taking photos, again, you can just keep hold of those photos to hold on to the images for evidence should HM Revenue Customs want to actually ask any questions or see any evidence. If you need any ideas on how to keep your records, then please do check out the other videos on accounting records and also on accounting software that is available to use. There's quite a few useful videos there which hopefully will help you get that side of things up and running. Now you have some ideas on what expenses you can be claiming within the business. As your sourcing business develops, you may want to consider registering for VAT. Check out the video on registering for VAT to find out what that really means. I hope today you've discovered what expenses you can be claiming in your sourcing business and hopefully keeping your tax bill down to a minimum. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and do press the bell to notify when a new video is available. Let's make tax less taxing.